So Enoch establishes Zion. The city is taken up into heaven. They are ushered into perfect peace. You would think that Enoch would feel at that point that they had arrived.
He didn't?
Well, he might have for a little while, but then the Lord showed him the misery of the people that had been left behind.
Yeah. That's when the scriptures tell us that God weeps.
Yes. And that challenges me. It takes away any permission that I feel to think in terms of us and them, right? The Lord cares about us all.
Yeah, he's been calling us to build peace ever since Adam and Eve.
Yeah. So today, we're asking the question, how do we build Zion in a way that keeps our hearts open to those who are trying to hurt us?
Good question.
I'm still learning, line upon line, slowly changing this heart of mine. Yes, I've got blind spots, they'll fade away, and I'll see clearly someday.
Welcome to Still Learning, a Come Follow Me podcast, where today we are discussing Moses chapter 7, all about the establishing of Zion. I'm Rebecca Burnham, and this is my co-host, Gunnar Michael Anderson.
The thing I love about Moses 7 is we get a lot more detail on Enoch's mission. A lot more detail about how it went down. I'm going to be real interested to talk about how does this connect to me. All right, cool, Enoch. Nice job. Good for you. What about me? Right? So I'm going to be real interested in that conversation because I know you're going to have some great insights.
The scriptures are replete with references to this being the great task of the people of God since the beginning of time. And I just love, at the end of this chapter, we are going to see Enoch see us build Zion, and just joy in that. And so we've got this city of Zion that was established way back before the flood. And we have the promise of the Zion that we are to establish today in preparation for the second coming of Jesus Christ. And what a blessing that we have Enoch's account so that we have some concept. Even though, I still want more. There's not a whole lot here, is there? In terms of how they go about building it.
Right at the very beginning of verse 1 in chapter 7, Enoch is continuing to talk from chapter 6. And he says, "Behold, our father Adam taught these things." I just love that he points that out to all of us, that Adam was teaching this from the very beginning. And he said some people didn't believe and perished in their sins, so people are actually dying. It also says that in verse 2 that from that time forth Enoch began to prophesy. And it leaves you with the impression that he's traveling around and he's crying unto the Lord. And so he's still looking to the Lord for direction. And then we get into verse 3. I have a feeling you're going to want to talk a little bit about what starts to happen in verse 3.
When the Lord calls him into a mountain and he goes up and the heavens are open. He is transfigured. He calls it clothed upon with glory. What a beautiful phrase, isn't it? And he sees the Lord face to face. And then the Lord gives him a vision of what is to come for many generations. We just learned about Moses having such a vision, didn't we?
Yes.
This is not a rare event. It's not unprecedented. And it's going to happen to others as well. But he sees this vision for many generations. He sees the vision all the way to our time. Let's really establish how bad things are. The first thing he sees seems to be the first genocide, where the people of Canaan come upon the people of Shem and destroy them completely. Okay, here's a quick little aside, because this is an interesting thing. It talks about a skin of blackness coming upon them. It talks about the people not going among them. We did just learn in the chapter before, in Moses chapter 6, as Enoch was teaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, he said in verse 54 of Moses 6, "Hence came the saying abroad among the people that the Son of God hath atoned for original guilt, wherein the sins of the parents cannot be answered upon the heads of the children. For they are whole from the foundation of the world." So Gunnar, I think as I'm reading this, what I read is one more of those human things. We have this tendency in society to want to punish, to want to withdraw grace from people when they've made a mistake, and sometimes to pass it on to their kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I'm doing genealogy, I am sad when I read base-born child and remember how children who were born out of wedlock were treated as a shame their entire lives for a mistake made by their parents.
Right.
And there's been this tendency throughout history to write off groups of people. And one of the groups of people that is apparently written off at this time is the people of the land of Canaan, the descendants of the perpetrators of the first genocide. I didn't see anywhere in there a command from the Lord to not have anything to do with the people of Canaan.
You know, this concept that you're talking about, this propensity to categorize people, and the most broad category tends to be us and them. We got to find out who them are. When you think about the plan of salvation, when you think about how big and grand it is, and you think about how little our planet is, right? Let alone us, in the grand sphere of things, in the whole universe. One of the things I think is fascinating is flying back. So I live on the East Coast, and I used to, for work, have to fly back to the West Coast a lot. And so I'm flying over the country back and forth. And there are big swaths of land, especially as you get into the Midwest and the Western United States, that are just not very well populated. But what you have are roads. You can see some highways etched across the face of the planet. But one of the things that has always fascinated me, when you take off, how quickly the people disappear. You're looking out the window, and it doesn't. I don't know at what height you are, but it's probably not 1,000 feet, and you can't see people anymore.
Yeah.
You can see cars, and you can still see cars for a while. But when you're up there flying at 30,000 feet, 37,000 feet, and you're looking at the desert terrain, and you can't see buildings, you can't see anything, but you can see these roads, right? And they look like ant trails. It's very humbling, I think, to look down there and say, I can't even, if it's daytime, I can't really even see signs of civilization from that height as we go over the Western United States, except for these ant trails.
Yeah.
And how much do I really think about ants? Right? I mean, what kind of respect do I give to ants? Right? I really don't think too much about them unless they're bothering me. And then I don't think too much about getting rid of them. I don't pay them a lot of respect. And ultimately, I'm one of those ants, and whoever I'm having a big problem with is another one of those ants. And it just doesn't matter. Right? However big I think that issue is, it's just not a big issue. It might be a big issue in my pygmy world, but it's not a big issue. I just need to get over myself.
Because what is the big issue?
Yeah, the big issue is exaltation. That's the big issue. The big issue is trusting that God has laid this all out to teach me something. And I am really glad that he doesn't hold back. That he's willing to let me suffer through the lessons and learn to draw myself out to him, put my faith and confidence in him. And as Joseph Smith says, follow all the commandments of God. Right? That's where That's where peace is.
So you can
And
have all the happiness of God.
yeah, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to have trials. It doesn't mean that you're not going to ever get cancer or lose a loved one unexpectedly. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have financial problems, but you've got context, right? The Lord has given us context. And one of my favorite scriptures comes from Romans, where Paul says, "For we know all things work together for good to them that love God." I've just always found it fascinating, "to them that love God" part. I think it's very telling, because I think we, as people who love God, know that when this awful, awful thing, terrible thing, this tragedy that's happened has happened, we are aware of the plan of salvation. We understand how small we are now and how big we can become, and that the Lord is helping us to become that thing, right? And so, as much as it hurts to not have, in the case of a personal tragedy, not have that person with us anymore, not have the use of, not have access to whatever it was that we had access to, as much as it's very painful to us, we know it's going to be okay. And when you don't have that faith, and you don't have that hope, right? Peter says, stand ready to always give reason for the hope that is within you. That's what the gospel gives us. That's what the gospel gives us. When you don't have the gospel, I understand why people thrash out, why people are angry, why people are mean, why people are possessive, why people are power hungry, money hungry. I understand, because
they don't have security.
That's all they have.
Yeah.
That's all they can see. That's all they can touch. That's all they can feel. That's how they measure their worth.
Well, I love how you've just basically given us the perspective that the Lord gives Enoch when he takes him up into this high mountain and shows him what matters and shows him the whole picture. And then the other thing that I love is that in the midst of showing all of this, the Lord makes it so clear to Enoch that we are infinitely more important to him than ants are to us, that he cares deeply.
I like the way President Uchtdorf has said it. He said that we are nothing compared to God, but we are everything to God. Yeah.
Yeah, just amazing.
Yeah.
So here's the thing that really hits me here. According to my calculations, unless I have done some of the math wrong, this is 687 years since Adam and Eve left the Garden of Eden that Enoch is called and begins the process of building Zion. So Adam, Seth, Enos, Cainan, Mahalalel, and Jared have been laboring, among many others in the land of Canaan, have been laboring to build Zion with the people who believe in God. And Enoch is called to go to the people who are lost and build Zion. This is a pattern. If you go to Alma chapter 13, we have the story of Melchizedek. It starts in verse 17 of Alma 13. Now this Melchizedek was a king over the land of Salem, and his people had waxed strong in iniquity and abomination. Yea, they had all gone astray. They were full of all manner of wickedness. But Melchizedek, having exercised mighty faith, and received the office of the high priesthood according to the holy order of God, did preach repentance unto his people. And behold, they did repent. And Melchizedek did establish peace in the land in his days. Therefore he was called the Prince of Peace, for he was the king of Salem, and he did reign under his father. So I'm seeing a pattern. And it's interesting because Melchizedek is, we don't know for sure who Melchizedek is. But his ministry occurs while Noah is on the face of the earth. There's some speculation that Melchizedek may be the name that Shem acquires because Melchizedek means king of righteousness. So what we have in the time of Enoch is, first of all, before Enoch, there is a gathering and a going away to a land of promise, where the people who believe in the teachings of the gospel of Jesus Christ are taught by their parents, and they're building this culture. But then there's this need to connect with the world that's left behind. And Zion is built in the midst of this connection. We have Noah and his sons leaving the world on a ship, right? And then there's this city of righteousness, Salem, that comes about among a people who had all gone astray. And we have, in the history of the restoration, a gathering. People came out of the world to gather and get kind of like this foundation. And then the call was made, okay, we stop. Stop that. Stay in your places where you are planted and build up Zion where you stand. Can we build Zion without that dynamic interaction between those who have had the gospel of Jesus Christ cultivated in their very DNA and those who have been struggling with the pain and the anguish and the difficulties of a fallen and unbelieving world? What do you think, Gunnar?
So I heard somebody say once that, in his opinion, the gospel of Jesus Christ is the white blood cells of society. It's the gospel that cleanses people. It's the gospel that repairs damage. And it's also the gospel that calls wicked things wicked and right, attacks.
Identifies the threats.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now the challenge is, and I don't know that I have an answer to this, but the challenge is, how do you do that with love? Right? How do you do that with the light of Christ? You know,
Yeah.
when I joined the church, I was called to be a ward missionary back when we had ward missionaries. And I want to say for the first 15 years, I was always called to be in the missionary work. And it was the thing I was least comfortable with. And I think the Lord knew that that was where I needed to have the greatest training. I've historically found it difficult to spread the gospel formally like that through missionary work. And I like that they, a few years ago, changed the wording on that. So instead of missionary work, changed it to sharing the gospel. And I think that was a beautiful change in language, because I think we all find it easier to share than to work. Right?
Yes.
So, and sharing is, it's a wonderful, natural human thing to share. When I think about what Enoch was doing here, and the gospel is full of missionary service, right? I don't care if you're in the Book of Mormon, if you're in the D&C, if you're in the New Testament, or if you're in the Old Testament, Pearl of Great Price, there's people going out, and they're going out in love to help their neighbors who may not realize they're missing something.
And I wonder, is it possible to learn the kind of love we need to learn in order to build Zion if we aren't among people who look down on us for what we believe?
Yeah.
Is there something about that interaction that deepens our faith? And is there something about, we talk about blind spots, we sing about blind spots. Is there something about connecting with, engaging with people who don't believe what we believe that helps to acquaint us with our blind spots and seek for the deeper truth so that the Lord can show us how to draw closer to Him?
I spent many years being afraid of the religious prejudice people have against me as a member of this church. I'm afraid of saying something because I'm afraid that they have a prejudice and they'll be judgy and there will be some kind of conflict there. And it wasn't until just in the last couple of years that I realized that the beam was in my eye, that I was the one that had the religious prejudice, that I was not getting involved with people of another faith. I was being very insular. My circle was getting smaller and smaller as I just hung around members of the church, and that was my group of friends. And my wife's been a real inspiration to me, where she's become part of a bunco group in the neighborhood.
A what?
It's some game that the ladies get together and play. I don't know. It's like a dozen ladies in the neighborhood. They get together, and she says they all drink wine and get drunk as they're playing this game, and there are prizes, and they dress up and stuff. And she goes and drinks her soda or water or something. She has a great time with them, and she's great friends with all these ladies in the neighborhood. My initial reaction, I was like, yes, that's great, reach out. And then we meet these people on the street as we're walking the dog, and I realized I was like, whoa, that's kind of like a vulgar person. I was the one being judgy about this, and these are sweet people. It took me a while to realize I have a problem.
Well, Gunnar, I think you've nailed something that culturally we tend to have, is that insular tendency, right? That whole birds of a feather flock together. We like to be where it's comfortable, where people believe the same way we believe.
Yeah.
I used to think we would build Zion when we got rid of the dead wood.
After we killed everybody else.
No, not killed everybody off. Please, that was never my thinking.
Just force them to move out.
No, just when they got so offended by us that they moved out. Okay. Or when the brethren told us to flee to Jackson County, and only the really good people would go, and we leave the people who drink Coke behind. Please, I want to be clear, that was a joke.
Yeah. What you're saying is they set up some artificial criteria to judge people by. A Zion interview, a formal Zion worthiness interview.
Based on me, right? Mm-hmm. Because my perspective at that point was, when everybody is like me, we'll have Zion. And I don't think that's the way it goes at all.
It's fun what you're saying there, because you're making me think about this Brother Joseph musical I'm working on. And I've really had the strong impression that I will have done it right when we go into production with nobody else in the production a member of the church, telling Joseph and Emma's story and the story of the restoration. Tell
me more. I want to hear more about that.
I feel like it's a prompting. I feel like it's a direction that I'm receiving, that it would be one thing to get members of the church involved, say, in recording the studio album, right? The album that's the finished product before actually going on stage, right? Because their testimonies will be piercing. But once it goes on stage, I feel like it needs to be told by people who are not bought into the story. I feel like they will bring something to that story that you and I never actually realized was there, because they're seeing it from a completely different perspective, feeling it from a different perspective. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's just in the back of my mind. I'm several steps away from doing that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
So however it happens, Enoch, in this engagement with people who are really, really lost, just like Melchizedek later on, an engagement with people who are really, really lost, a city where in chapter 7, verse 18, it says, "And the Lord called his people Zion, because they were of one heart and one mind, and dwelt in righteousness, and there was no poor among them." These people are no longer lost. And somehow, with all of this engagement, they have become of one heart and one mind. And of course, everybody in the area around them rejoices to see this come to pass, right, Gunnar?
Well, verse 12, Enoch calls on everybody except the people of Canaan to repent. And it says, and so great was the faith of Enoch that he led the people of God, and their enemies came to battle against them. And he spake the word of God, and the earth trembled, and the mountains fled, even according to his command. And the rivers of water were turned out of their course, and the roar of lions was heard out of the wilderness, and all nations feared greatly. So powerful was the word of Enoch, and so great was the power of the language which God had given him. Yeah, I don't know how to take that verse except literally. And I think back about what we said last week, where Enoch was young and had difficulty speaking and had confidence issues. And the Lord said, listen, just say what I'm telling you to say. It's like the special code words that unlock the universe, right? You say the sequence of words and it's just, you got to pay attention to a guy who's moving mountains and changing the course of rivers, and it was a very powerful language that God had given him. But I also think about the Lord has given us a lot of language. The Lord has given us a lot of powerful language. There are a lot of things that we can do. And I think it gets back to the New Testament when the man brings his son who seems to have like a severe case of epilepsy. And the Lord says, do you believe? He says, yes, Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief. And I think we're all there. Mm-hmm. We all believe, but I think we all just fall a little short of perfect belief because the earth doesn't tremble when we speak and the mountains move and the rivers. I read that and I feel like the Lord's got the story here, not so that we can be amazed at what Enoch did, but that we can be reminded of the power the Lord provides to us to use in our own lives.
I love that. And I think it's very significant that this city of Zion, this city of peace and righteousness and one heart and one mind, was absolutely terrifying to the people around. They see this power and they fear it's going to be used against them, right?
Yeah.
And how likely is it that Enoch and the people of God are going to come out against the wicked people? All they're doing is inviting them to come and join. Come and join us. But they're terrified because they judge by their own selves.
Right. And then if I liken that to myself, I think that what that says is that we can expect no better of somebody else than what we would do in that situation.
Right.
Right. And so in all of our interactions, especially when we're expecting a bad interaction, maybe give those people a little more grace. Yeah. I think we can hit the situation with a little more grace. We're okay. I remember once I had a lady working for me, and her hair was on fire because she had received an email from one of the directors. This particular director, he really struggled to understand email etiquette. He was an older man.
All men were offended by him.
and his caps lock seemed to randomly go on and off. So he'd be writing a note, and he'd say, I don't understand how this thing can stop working and when I'm here all night. Or something like this, right? And I remember telling her she was going to go in there with a sledgehammer and just bop him in the head and just let him have it. Yeah. I remember telling her, I was like, give me the email. And she had printed it out. I said, let me read it to you. I don't understand how this could not work when I've been on this all night. I just read it kind of sweetly. And so I got hit in the head. But she went and I said, you just got to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. The number one mistake we make, I think, in our communications, particularly through social media or email, is we do not assume good intent. As you read those messages, just assume good intent. Even if it's very clear that it's an attacking note, just assume there's they're trying to do the right thing. Life is a lot easier if you assume good intent. Some people may think you're naive, but you get a lot more done when you're a peacemaker. And a easy way to be a peacemaker is assume good intent.
Gunnar, I feel like you've just nailed a key principle for the question that we're asking today. How do we build Zion while keeping our hearts open to people who want to hurt us?
Yeah.
Assume that, give them credit for their good intentions.
Yeah.
They're probably misguided.
Yeah, at least you're dealing with somebody who's trying to do the right thing. They might have a complete misunderstanding of what's right
Yep.
and wrong, but they're trying to do something.
Yeah.
They're trying to make things better. The people who aren't doing nothing are the ones who I think are more dangerous. I really believe that the opposite of love is not hate, is not anger. I think the opposite of love is apathy, just not feeling anything. I think people who hate because they love something and they see whatever this other thing is doing as a threat to the thing that they love. So I think hate is an aspect of love, or to say it differently, it's misguided love, right?
There's that whole hot and cold. The Lord wants us hot or cold, but lukewarm.
Oh, yeah, I never
He was
thought of it that
saying
way,
so.
but you're
Yeah.
but you're right. So I think when somebody hates you, you can think that you're engaging with somebody who loves something. And so I think you can work with that. It's somebody who's passionate and they have a love, and it might not be the thing that you love, but you can work with somebody who's in love with something.
Okay, I have to tell you this story.
Yeah.
So, I was a journalist for a conservative news magazine in Vancouver, and the National Film Board was having a festival there in Vancouver. I was sent to cover this National Film Board film festival with a bunch of stuff paid for by taxpayer dollars that, as a conservative news magazine, we had concerns about. One of the things I was assigned to do was attend the networking session for lesbian filmmakers. So I went into this session and I was just like all ready to find these monsters who were trying to destroy the world, you know. And I listened to these women talking behind closed doors. They assumed that everybody in the room was on their team. And I saw my sisters who were trying to build a better world. It was this incredible experience for me because I went in thinking they were my enemies. And I'm sitting here in this room with them when their guard is down. And I see people who are idealists like I am. They just have a different framework. And they're concerned about different things and the different things that are in the way of the Zion world. Like we do all long for a Zion world. We just don't agree on how to get there. But I'll tell you, that experience just completely changed my perspective on the people I had thought of as my enemies.
Some of the most beautiful people I've ever known have been gay and tragic. They probably wouldn't want me to say that, but they carried a lot of pain with them. That's what I meant by tragic. They had led difficult lives, but some of them were very beautiful.
Yeah. And how do we get to a place where we say, how do I build Zion with my LGBTQ brothers and sisters? Can we say that? Can we think that? Can we...
Why not? I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, Zion is the pure in heart. Why? You get into a whole bunch of interpretation about what pure in heart means. I think it means people without guile, people who are not being manipulative, people who are just trying to do the right thing.
So in our efforts to strengthen culture around the family, the Lord would not have us make enemies with people who are coming at this from a different perspective. And that's not to say that we don't speak the truths that the Lord asks us to speak, that the brethren don't speak those truths that he asks them to speak. But we can love each other and we can find ways to work together.
Heck, I mean, everybody I love is not me. You know, they differ from me in one respect or another. You know, so what if they differ in a large respect? You know,
And how much do we share? And like these are not the people who were coming against the city of Zion, the giants and the others who were trying to destroy it. But even those, when Enoch was in heaven, looked down and saw the Lord weeping over his children who didn't love each other, who were hurting each other. And gathering Enoch and his people was not enough. It was made very clear to Enoch that the Lord wanted all his children.
I love it what he says in verse 32. First, Enoch says, "How is it thou canst weep? How can you weep?" Right? And the Lord said unto Enoch, "Behold, these, thy brethren, they are the workmanship of mine own hands. And I gave unto them their knowledge in the day I created them. And in the Garden of Eden I gave unto man his agency. And unto thy brethren have I said, and also given commandment, that they should love one another, and that they should choose me their father. But behold, they are without affection, and they hate their own blood." The fact that we're able to make God weep by the choices we make, that's a very personal relationship, a very deep relationship that the Lord wants us to have with him, and that he already feels for us.
I think that's beautiful. And I think that is the key of Zion, is to be anchored in that kind of love.
And remember, they're our brethren. Joseph Smith, I forget which letter it was he wrote. He wrote a letter to the saints. And he says, "Brethren," and then he pauses and he says, "By brethren, I mean all the men, all the women, and all the children." And then he goes on with his instruction.
I love it.
And so I think that we read this, I read this certainly the very same way. It's, and to all of you, I've said, to love one another. I haven't given anybody a different commandment. And they just won't listen.
And yet he saw the day when we would. Enoch sees the restoration, righteousness coming forth out of the earth. He sees the building up of a new Jerusalem. He sees the second coming. And he sees 1,000 years of peace that embraces the whole earth. I'm also touched by how Enoch prays for the Lord to come. And the Lord talks about the power of Enoch's prayers. And you can bet he prayed for us. You can bet we have all the prayers of the prophets and the faithful from the beginning of time to support us now in the task that's been given to us.
Yeah, I think it's Moses chapter 1 where the Lord shows all of his works to Moses and all the people through all the generations. And we talked about how it was like he was a proud father showing Moses all his children. And he does that again here with Enoch. He's showing all of us to Enoch. Yeah. So let's make him proud.
Let's do it.
Let's do what we can. So, Rebecca, what did you learn from this week's lesson?
Well, I learned that in the quest to build Zion, we need to be engaged, not just with those who believe like we do, who have received and love the gospel of Jesus Christ, but also those who have not yet, because we have things to grow together that will bring us to the Lord. And that's what my song is about today.
I'm really looking forward to this.
Unity's not a single note bursting forth from a million throats, nor a melody sung in unison by a monochrome multitude.
It's a glorious refrain in Jesus' name, interweaving stories of grace and glory in tones of gratitude.
So bring your uniqueness, your challenging tale, and sing of his goodness, of love that can't fail, and fling all your fear of rejection far, far away.
I need your perspective to balance my own. 'Cause no single culture builds Zion alone. So sing out your story for Zion. Let's build her today. I tend to gather with folks like me, more comfortable when we agree. A similar life reduces strife, assures me I'm okay.
But if I would know God, gonna need to walk in the
Too tight shoes of those abused, I judged and turned away. So bring your uniqueness, your challenging tale, and sing of His goodness, of love that can't fail, and fling all your fear of rejection far, far away.
I need your perspective
To balance my own, 'cause no single culture builds Zion alone. So sing out your story for Zion. Let's build her today. Let's never fear we don't belong. The broken paths we've walked along have skinned our knees and bruised our very soul. But oh, the wonder of the grace that found us in our darkest space. Transformed, we testify He makes us whole.
So bring
Your uniqueness, your challenging tale, and sing of His goodness, of love that can't fail, and fling all your fear of rejection far, far away. I need your perspective to balance my own, 'cause no single culture builds Zion alone. So sing out your story for Zion. We'll build her today. We'll sing out our story for Zion. And in Zion stay.
Building Zion is real close to your heart. And I'm glad you were able to write a song about it and share it with us. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Gunnar.
So that looks like it's a wrap for another episode of Still Learning. We're grateful you're able to join us and encourage you to keep learning, because we're still learning just like you. We'll see you next week.
We're still learning, line upon line, slowly gaining a heart divine. We've still got blind